we had a situation. We have a property that is under contract. We have the buyer. All right. They came to me. I did the referral to a listing agent up in New Jersey to sell their property. Okay. So 800. Well, it was appraised at just I think 725 or something like that. But the market is still crazy. So I'm going to be letting people in as we go. So the market is still crazy up there, right? So they get a cash offer for $800,000, right, on their house there. So everybody's happy. Now, unfortunately, and it was listed at 750. So when we go into multiple offers, a lot of times I'm very cautious with the offers that are just a ridiculous amount above the price. Because what happens a lot of cases is when somebody goes high, they go high expecting to work the price down later. So 750 listing price, $800,000 cash offer. There was some issues. They negotiated the price back down with a $45,000 credit. All right, so basically 755, right? Cash offer. Now, I'm not the listing agent there, nor am I licensed in New Jersey. However, this was a $700 or an $800,000 contract, cash being reduced to $755,000. Now, I wasn't part of it, but somebody thought that a credit of $45,000 would be the way to go. Now, with a credit, right? We know that if we have a credit towards whatever, if we don't use that money, it's being left on the table. And if we have a cash buyer, it would be in our client's best interest to negotiate a buy down or a reduction in price of $45,000, right?
Yeah,
be in our best interest, because why would it be, or not in our best interest, but it's in the client's best interest if they're paying cash to have a $45,000 lower price? Why would it be in the client's best interest?
that's the buyer client.
Well, we represent it's our client that's selling, but on both sides, on the buyer and the seller. If it's a cash transaction, what would be the advantages to them lowering the sale price as opposed to giving a concession?
Well, commission would be one.
100%. That's a big one right there. That's going to eat up a lot of it, right? But we're going to have the assessed value, right? Because it's going to play into the assessed value for later. The transfer taxes, all the fees that go along with it that are based on sale price. So it would be in our best interest, or not, I keep saying our best interest, but it's in my best interest to represent my clients. But even for the buyer, because they're going to pay less transfer tax on the buyer side with the lower price.
It also affects capital gains eventually too, right?
Because, well, yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different stuff there, but capital gains I'm not so worried about, because I would show the credit on there and I'd get the credit back, right? But so anyway, so the problem is, for those of you that are just jumping in, we were talking about a situation that came up with somebody I referred up to New Jersey. They're currently under contract here in Florida to buy their house, and their listing up north was listed at 750, contracted 800, and then the buyer there was some issues, so they negotiated it down to a $45,000 credit. Well, I don't know where it went sideways, but now the buyer, the seller realizes that they could have dropped down the price to, 755, paid less commission, less taxes. The buyer is in agreement because it's better for them as well. The buyer's agent says, no, I want my full commission. So my point behind this, and why I'm leading with this story tonight, right? Do you think, now, if you do the difference, right, even if they're getting a full 3%, who wants to do the math on me for 3% of $45,000?
We got 12.
How much?
About 12,000.
1,200.
Well, oh yeah, 1,200. Yeah, and
1,200.
Commission anyway.
What's that?
You should never, your negotiation should never be commission based.
100%. 100%. Right. However, this agent on the other side, this buyer's agent, is going to fight and irritate and most likely lose a $800,000. Not only a buyer we'll get it through one way or the other. I'm not going to let this slide, right? We'll get it fixed. But for $1,350, okay, yeah, this buyer's agent is going to alienate their buyer. Now, you know what $800,000 buyers come with?
Good attorneys.
Well, besides that, right? Forget about the attorneys. The attorneys are one thing, right? But most likely we're never going to get there, right? But more importantly, I'm sorry?
Referrals?
100%. $800,000 buyers have $800,000 buyer friends, right? Why would you, for $1,300, why would you kill a referral source? I mean, is that silly or what?
Yep.
Now, it sounds like it would be a no-brainer, but unfortunately for some people out there, they don't understand, and it's all about the transaction. I can't tell you the amount of realtors that I've heard and talked to, and they're looking at the MLS, right? Especially when we all used to sit in bullpens, right? And we'd have 3 or 4 realtors around, and they're looking for properties for their client. And I hear, oh, this one's 3%. This one's 2.5%. This one's 2. Oh, that one's 1.5. I'm not showing that one. You are not doing your client right. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to make sure that everybody is really, taking this to heart, because I promise you, if you give up and you do the right thing by your client and say, you know what, it is in your best interest to do a $45,000 price adjustment, right? You're going to save. It may not, ultimately, it may be close, but if it's $1,300 over here, now maybe it's for the buyer, so they're not going to be affected, but it will be in the sales price, which will get affected into their taxes when they're coming around for the assessment. Okay, as well as the transfer taxes. So it is in your client's best interest, and we have the responsibility to act in our client's best interest. Do we not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So my point behind this is, if you do the right thing, your business will flourish. It's going to be, every one of us has started at some point. Every one of us has started with our first deal, and then, we grow, right? I cannot tell you, I can tell you, I've had now 3 that I remember offhand. The 3 times when I've had to tell a seller that, listen, maybe it's 4 times actually, 4 times that I have told sellers that it is not in your best interest to sell right now. I recommend you stay in the house for for however long, and we revisit this after 12 to 24 months. Okay. Now, it's not in my best interest because I just lost the sale, right? But out of those 4 times that I've done that, one just happened the other day, so that's why I'm counting the 3. But out of those 3 times that I've done that, even though it sounds counterproductive, okay, I cannot tell you the amount of referrals that I've gotten. And when people hear that Chris told me not to sell because it wasn't in my financial best interest, do you think that referral rings out to those people that are receiving that referral?
Yes, sir.
100%. Right? I'm not saying I've never had a deal go bad. Right? I'm not saying that. I mean, it happens. You do enough deals, something is going to go bad and something's going to fall apart. But when you can see it and the numbers don't make sense, and Daniel, you're trying to sell your house, but I know for a fact that you will not have the money left over to get where you want to go. right? I have to tell you this, right? Or whatever the scenario is, right? If it's not a good deal, I have to educate my clients and do the right thing by them, regardless of what it's going to do to my pocket. Now it sounds like I said, it sounds silly, sounds like it might be a little counterproductive, but if you go in and your whole thing is nothing but the sale, nothing but the sale, nothing but the sale, your career will be transactional and you will work for every penny that you earn. Make sense?
Yes.
So, and I bring these scenarios to you guys because these are real things happening in real time. This particular scenario happened this morning. Okay. So this is real time. It's not anything more than, it's happening right now. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
What's up, Ellie?
Chris, so in that same scenario, if an agent is pushing for that type of commission or asking, isn't it ultimately like the buyer's choice to say, hey, listen, you're not acting in my best interest? Can they break the contract? Because now since we have to, make a contract to hire, for them to hire us, can they ultimately say, listen, I don't want to work with you anymore because you're looking out for yourself and not for me necessarily? So is that something that's going to happen now, or how does it work?
Okay, so this is why we practice our contracts, and this is why we make sure that on our end here we have Ken and Shari, as well as the rest of the team, checking these contracts to make sure that they are ironclad. Contracts are not recommendations, right? We got Monica here. She's working out of Maryland. Monica, I don't know if you can respond, but how detailed are Maryland contracts?
They're pretty detailed. They kind of go over every single thing. There's
How many
very little
pages
that's
are
missed.
your average contract in Maryland?
I think it's like 12.
Now, once you figure all the additional addendums and everything else in there.
Oh, 24 to 32, depending on the property.
Yeah, 24 to 32. Okay. And the reason why I bring that up is I'm licensed in both areas, so I'm very well acquainted with both contracts. The good thing, right? Obviously, it sounds like 24 to 32. I don't want to fill out that many papers, but in Maryland, everything is written down. It's clear. All of the parameters are out there. In Florida, we have a 4-page contract. We have maybe 1 or 2 addendums if we get that. Okay, it leaves it very ambiguous, right? So it leaves it open to interpretation. So Ellie, to answer your question, the reason why we do these contracts the way we do is to make sure we're eliminating every contingency that we can possibly have. Now, granted, like I said, to negotiate down $45,000 on an $800,000 property on a cash deal, that is in my client's best interest. Okay, so at that point, we would do the addendum, do the price drop. However, if we have a contract and it's filled out properly, you cannot just walk away. This thing closes on Friday, right? They just decided to do this today. Okay. So whoever walks away, buyer or seller, is now in breach of contract. Okay. Unless there's a loophole. If there's something that's wrong, something that needs to be changed, there's a contingency that somebody added in there. And that's why it's so important to know our contracts. So let's talk about that for a minute. We have we have a property. On this particular property, the actual appraisal, the list price was $750. The actual appraisal is at $725. Okay. They have an offer at $800,000. Okay. Now let's say that the buyer is the one that pulls out. Right? Buyer tanks the deal and they put it back on the market, and now they only get $725,000 for it. Right? But in discovery, they realized that the reason why they were able to get out of the contract is because you, the realtor, messed up your portion of the contract and didn't do it properly. So you just cost your client $75,000. Okay. Ultimately, doesn't usually happen, but ultimately they do have the right to come after you and sue you for the difference of the $75,000. Now, on the flip side of it, we have an $800,000 contract, and it's the seller, and now it's the buyer's fault, right? And they don't get the full contract. We can go after the buyers for the difference. Okay, we had this in a custom build that we did some years ago. All right, so the scenario with this one, it was a custom colonial 2-level house, all right, with a master bedroom on the first floor and all the other bedrooms on the top floor, all right, but no master on the second floor. All right, very undesirable floor plan in most cases. For this particular family, it worked. However, what happened was during the contract price, contract phase, everything was good. We break ground, and then in this particular, working with this builder, they have a design phase where once it's in frame, we get to go pick out all the electronics, so speakers, stereos, and they added like $75,000-$80,000 worth of stereo equipment and automations to the house. Okay. Well, we get through that, committed to that. The house is maybe, I don't know, 40 days away from completion. And I get a call from the lender, Chris. Our client was just fired from her very high paying government job. We need to stop. Right. So right away, I get out there. I call the builder, who's very well connected. I call a bunch of other people. They're like, you know what? We're going to help her out. They start looking for other comparable jobs to get her back into a job, right? And in the meantime, I'm calling the lender looking for the I need is the letter stating that she was fired. All right. Now, for those of you that have ever been around government service, she was a GS 14 or 15, I forget. Okay. GS 14s and GS 15s don't get fired. Okay. They don't, unless something bad happened. And when I got that letter, okay, it was redacted. So that means there's all these black lines through it, right? Because all this information that couldn't go out to the world. But what wasn't redacted was the fact that it had been dated 4 months previous, which was before we broke ground. Okay. And the verbiage that was not redacted also stated basically she had to leave or face prosecution. All right. So whatever she did, which I don't have access to this information, whatever she did was criminal in nature, and she would not maintain a job like that again. So at that point, is the buyer in breach?
Yes.
Yes.
100%. And you know what? We went after that buyer. And I believe when the smoke settled, they had to come up with about $115,000 to cover the difference. It was 115, 117, something like that. So it is important to make sure that we're staying there. Unfortunately, people do crazy things. Now, granted, whatever she was doing was criminal in nature. So, fudging a contract was probably not her biggest concern in the world. Right. But she kept ordering stuff like it was going to be okay. Right. And we have multiple scenarios where this stuff has happened. So, Ellie, does that answer your question? I know we kind of went on a tangent there, but does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense, Chris. Thank you. That's great information. However, I was pinpointing, and I don't think I was clear on my question prior to, can the buyer in your first scenario fire the agent that's moaning about losing his commission. Okay, he said, listen, this is not right. You're just looking out for you. Can I
So
get a new agent? Okay, I know I know it
yeah,
encompass the whole thing, so maybe I'm not understanding correctly.
yeah,
Not
you're right.
exactly.
So yes, and believe it or not, this scenario just happened as well. So another transaction that we had that I put with an agent up in Maryland, and it's been a new construction, so he's been under contract for over a year. Okay, it was some delays. Apparently, there was some changes. Well, this particular agent, which will not get any further of my referrals, took the client, and I don't know what happened behind closed doors, but he pissed off these clients tremendously. So he wound up, the buyer said he was representing the buyer, going to the builder. They fired him. Okay. They fired him. It's, done. We don't want anything to do with you. Nobody that should contact us. You are fired. However, they are under contract. He procured the sale. Buyer broker is already agreed upon. Now, the buyer doesn't have to use you for the remainder of the transaction. However, you are, you as the buyer's agent, or that buyer's agent, whatever, does still rate a commission at the end. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, guys.
Now, also, too, one of the reasons why I push buyer broker agreements so heavily here in Maryland, it's required. In about a month and a half here in Florida, it's going to be required. Buyer broker agreements are what protect you. So you want to make sure, unfortunately, you do enough transactions, and everyone on this call is a good person. But if you do enough transactions, you're going to have one where the relationship goes sour. Right? It just is what it is. Right? You roll the dice enough times, and eventually, you're going to get snake eyes. Right? So you just roll. I'm sorry.
Can't keep everybody happy.
No, you can't. So that buyer's broker agreement is going to solidify that relationship and also that agreement with that house. You procured it, you brought it, you negotiated it, you rate your commission. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
So, keep that in mind. You're gonna have somebody that's not going to be happy with you, and you know what? You may not get referrals from that person again, right? And for whatever reason, it is what it is. You roll on. So I'm not saying it's the end of the world, but we want to make sure that when we are working with our clients, we are bringing our best possible game face. Make sense? I know I get wound up about this stuff, right? And I know I get passionate because I see the horrible examples out there every day. And if you look, I guarantee you're going to see them as well. Okay. Builders, right? I always say I love new construction. For anybody that doesn't know, new construction is a great product, right? It's clean, right? I can tell you everything that's inside the walls, right? There's usually a spec sheet. Even if it's a spec home, they'll tell you exactly what they put into the home. New construction almost never fails for anything inspection related, right? Where do you go wrong in new construction?
Timelines.
How do we go bad with timelines in new construction?
Because they don't produce the product in the specified time.
Yeah, it's about the expectations, right? I expected my home to be done in 12 months. I expected it to be done in 6 months. Okay. If I expect it to be done in 12 months and it gets done in 6 months, most of the time I'm going to be good. I'm going to be happy it's done early. But if I tell a client it's going to be 6 months and it goes out to 12 months, now all of a sudden they're frantic. There's a 6-month window that they got to find housing for. right? So it becomes stressful. Now, another part of the problem with that is most realtors, they'll walk a client into, I don't care what builder, it doesn't matter. They'll walk a client into a builder and they'll find the model that they like. They'll do some customization, some personalization, whatever it is. And then you're like, high five, you're under contract. I'll call you when it's time for closing. Right? And they may not say it like that, but that's ultimately what they do. And they don't follow up with the client. Right? When I do new construction, especially when it's a build, I always tell people, you're going to call me at least twice during this process, and you're going to be freaking out. Right? I'm letting you know right now, I'm expecting the 2 phone calls. So whenever you want to use them, by all means, use them. And you're going to call me for the hole's too big, the foundation's too small, the roof's on crooked, the whatever it is, there's going to be something that's going to freak you out. Right? Because people are visual. Right? And it's hard when we're doing this stuff because contracts, other than the paper, are not visual. These things are happening behind the scenes. And when we have permitting and things like that, waiting for 3 to 6 months for a permit to come in, or sometimes longer if you're in a critical area, all right? You could be 12 months for waiting on a permit, right? And your client hears nothing and nothing is happening. And you haven't called them and the builder hasn't called them and they're freaking out because they put down, you know, 25, 30, 40, $50,000 in earnest money and they're not hearing from anybody. Right? So by the time you call them to say, hey, listen, we had a delay, they're already wound up. So they're not going to take it well. Right? Now, if you know it's going to be a 12-month, you know, permit process because we're going to be on the Chesapeake Bay or on the intercoastal here in Florida, maybe I don't have to call every week, but I should definitely not let it go more than 2 weeks. Hey, just want to let you know, we're still waiting on on this or that or whatever it is, so that they have your voice. Plus, if it's a 12-month process and you're staying in touch with them, it's also a chance to get referrals. Okay. But when that problem, which every contract has a problem, hopefully it's small ones, but it depends on how you catch it. Once you have that rapport and you've been calling them and they're like, you know what, Edward has been calling me every week to let me know exactly where we're at. He's on top of stuff. He's building emotional equity, relationship equity, that when he calls and says, listen, we're at the town, right? We have a little bit of a delay. They're not going to freak out. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
The biggest single complaint filed with the Board of Realtors is by far still lack of response by realtors. Right? So this is why it is so important to make sure we're following up with our people. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Does anybody have any questions on that or any thoughts that they want to share?
Good evening, everybody.
How you doing, Guy?
All right. Quick question. So for the buyer broker agreement that you were talking about, does EXP have them already loaded somewhere for you to just print them out and have them e-signed?
So, Guy, for you, you're going to have to check with New York, but it should be in SkySlope. Every other state that I know of, they're uploaded in SkySlope.
Okay.
Okay, that's the one thing. If you're here in Florida, I can tell you for sure, 100%, they are right there.
Okay.
We even have the app files, so you have to have it. But check with your local broker there, however they want to do it. But you want to make sure that you have this.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, I'm trying to download something for you guys, and it hasn't. There you go. So it is super, super important to make sure that we have all this stuff in play. Make sense? I am, hold on one second. I'm going to add this right here because I wanted to bring this in. I made this editable for you guys, and I'm going to share this. I'm putting this link in the chat for you guys, and I want you to take it. I made it as a Word document so you guys can take a look at this stuff. But I know that we've talked about this in the past, but I felt that this was super important because we are seeing more and more of this stuff come up. And with the changes in NAR and everything else that's coming up, it is super critical for you to understand your value and what it is that you're bringing to your clients. So save this. I made it so you can, download it. You can't edit it, but you can make a copy on your computer. And then edit it. Add anything else that you are doing for your clients, right? The initial consultation. I promise you, you will answer the question. If not now, later. But if you do it later, it's going to be in a reactive state. So take the time. If you don't have a buyer's presentation, email me. I will send you a copy of ours. You can adjust it however you want, right? Right, make it your own, but you need to have a buyer's presentation and do that initial buyer's consultation. You're building rapport, okay? And also too, while you're building rapport, it's discovery for you as well to find out what their needs are and listen to them to see what kind of hiccups you might overcome or have to overcome. Okay? I really, I want to buy this house. Right. And I really like it, but I'm on the fence. I got to check with my mom. Right. Does anybody like hearing that somebody wants to check with their mom or their dad? No, it is the most painful thing. Dads come in and I don't know, they could be, I don't know, they do whatever they do in life, but they bought 2 houses over the past 45 years. And all of a sudden they're an expert. Right. And they open 2 windows and they're like, that window made a noise when I opened it. This house is no good. Right. And these things happen. So if I know that there's a dad involved, I want to get them involved because when it comes to that, I want to make sure I have a chance to gauge what I'm dealing with that parent. Right. Does that make sense to everybody? Right. If there's, I'm sorry, what was that, Monica?
No, you're 100% correct.
Yeah. When, you want to know every party that is privy to this. Right. I mean, on that note, right. When you write a contract and and I don't, for argument's sake, this is a male and female couple. Whose name do you put on the contract first, male or female?
I would put the male.
You would put.
Sometimes it depends on who I feel like is driving the transaction.
Okay. How do you know?
The one who does the most talking.
Yes, that's what would make sense, right? That's what would make sense. 100%. The one that does the most talking. But sometimes you have somebody that does the talking, but silently it's the other partner. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I found this out the hard way. I got contacted by a woman years ago, and her husband, they wanted to buy a house, and a very high price house. It was great. And she was the one that contacted me. They were great. Both had high paying jobs, great approvals. We had we had a lot of cash getting put down, and I wrote the contract. Right. Now, the husband was a full bird colonel in the Army. All right. Very stern guy, very, adamant, put his name on the contract. She about blew up and bit my head off. Right. I wasn't reading it. Right. Now, after that, we smoothed it out. I'm still friends with them today because we smoothed it out. But you got to pay attention. Why not just ask? Whose name do you want on the contract first? They'll tell you. Just be polite. Make sense?
Chris, can you just explain why that matters?
Legally, it doesn't matter typically, right? Unless it has something to do with financing, but most of the time it doesn't matter. But there are certain people that have a power trip that want their name, shown first. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, occasionally there might be some order of precedence, like if we have a non-inhabiting co-borrower. But if you have something unique like that, the lender is going to tell you exactly how they want the offer written up, and then you just fall back on that. But most of the time, I'm looking for who the alpha is in the relationship. Sometimes it'll ring out real strong, but sometimes, that alpha is quiet. So it doesn't hurt. Whose name would you like on the contract first? And some people are not going to care, right? They're not going to care. But it's just something that I have found over the years and it's happened, a few different times where, I think somebody is the alpha and the other one is actually driving the ship. And then, of course, you throw in one extra little curveball on that, where one partner wants to put the other one first just to make them feel stronger in the relationship. All right. We buy emotionally and justify logically. So I don't care what you say, right? As far as when you're talking with somebody, this is emotional. And that's why they have us to keep their heads on point. Does that make sense? So keep that in mind. But all this stuff here, take this, manipulate it the way you want, and you can even, clean it up. I made this editable so you can do what you want with it, but add this into your buyer's presentation. So when the whatever rolls out in a couple months, and however the smoke, when the smoke clears, right, you have your value. Those agents, like I've said before, those agents that have been running around for the past however many years saying, go ahead and use me, you're not paying my salary anyway, on the buyer side, they've been shooting themselves in the foot, and that's why we're at where we're at right now. Okay. And sell them on this, right? Property search, right? Look at this one here. Now, it is our job to help with the property search, but has anybody ever had a buyer where every time they turn around, they're getting an email from their buyer? Hey, look, I just found this one. I just found this one. They're on Realtor.com. They're on Zillow. You have buyers that are just, they have access to the information, right? And the information is out there, and we put it out there because we want to sell our houses. But that means the buyers have it, right? So we want to make sure that, yes, it is part of what we offer, but it's not the only thing we offer. Okay. I just came from a listing just before we started this class. Just got a new listing signed. Luckily, it's only, I don't know, a mile and a half from my house. All right. She's 86 years old. She doesn't text, and she doesn't know how to use email. Okay. That means I got to get wet signatures every time we got to make a change. Luckily, it's only a mile and a half from my house. Okay. But normally I communicate in text and emails. Should I have turned down the listing because I don't normally do wet signatures on every addendum? No, it's almost a $400,000 listing. I'm going to go get those signatures. Right. But if my only value proposition was I text and I use property searches, right? I wouldn't have gotten anywhere with her. So you got to have the value, because not all of the things you offer are going to be important to your clients. Does that make sense? Yeah. And I know I hear people say, well, my property search, I have access to the real MLS. You only have a third party. I have all the information. You don't have any. That's what this lawsuit's all about, folks. It's about the information being out there. And if you're looking at the MLSs, most of the MLSs I'm seeing are now putting all that private data that you didn't want to share with your clients. They're putting it out to your clients. All the commission rates, what it's offering, the whole bit. So sell your value. You know, I guarantee you, because it's happened now and it's happened in the past, you're going to have people that are going to go directly to the listing agent saying, well, I want to make an offer 3% off because I don't have a realtor and I don't need one. Right? It's happened, but it's been happening for years. Right? It's going to be the same thing. So we have to show our value. Make sense to everybody?
Yes.
This is the most important thing for you to bring, show your value when you're talking with people. Over 80, I think it's 85, 86% of people choose people that they're going to work with based on how they feel about them over technical proficiency. I'm not saying you can get away without knowing anything, but they want to know that they can trust you. And this is how you build the trust. You let them know, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Right? And this is a good way when you're trying to build that rapport to build that with your people. Has anybody here ever struggled, and I'm not saying in general, but with a specific client and struggled no matter what you did, you just couldn't build rapport with them? I have. You guys have never had a problem building rapport with anybody? Okay. All right. Well, cool. I know that I have had issues in the past, right? I'm not saying all the time. I'm usually pretty good at reading my clients, but it happens, right? People that I just do not gel with, right? For whatever reason, right? And sometimes I won't know that reason. And they're just closed off. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they had a bad experience with a short realtor or a short Marine or, a cop or whatever it is. I mean, people have these things, in their heads. Sometimes you're just not going to get past them, and you don't know why they don't like you. Or maybe you don't know why you don't like them. And that's okay. You're not going to get to everybody. And then you have to make the decision. Can you be professional enough to get all the way through and make a sale out of it? Or is it better off to just go ahead and refer this out to somebody? All right. Perfect example. All right. Again, real world example. I'm sitting there. I have my office in the back of at the time we were still working out of a bigger office. And there was a duty agent up front, and the agent decided nobody's coming in, so they left. So a man and a woman walked through the door, okay? And when they came in, they're from up north. They got that fast talking. Oh, we got them. We're wheeling, we're dealing, we're making whatever, right? And so the receptionist asked me to come out and talk to them. Yeah, not a problem. I come out, and my initial reaction is they're talking fast. They're both on the phones. They're talking kind of like, like I don't mean anything, and I don't know what's going on. They're trying to get on each side of me, which is not making me feel comfortable. I don't like them. Right out the gate, I don't like them. This is not going anywhere. And he tells me the male, they're not married. Turns out that one is the employer, the other one's the employee. He says, I got a house, 2-bedroom, 1 bath, or maybe it was 2 bath, whatever it was, around the house I need to sell. You want to sell it? So I'm like, yeah. Now, normally I would schedule something so I could do my research and get out there, but I figured he was full of crap, right? That was my gut feeling, right? I had no intention of working with this guy. I said, you know what, dude? I said, give me the address. I got a little time. Let's go now. Right? I put him on the spot. Let's go now. So anyway, he agreed to it, you know. So the two of them went over to the house, wound up being a nice little renovation, right? They gutted it, renovated it. Turns out, okay, this guy owned 850 properties, and he was looking to liquidate all the single families and the duplexes. So I got all the single families and duplexes within St. Lucie and Indian River counties. I wound up selling like, I don't know, 20 something homes in a matter of just under 2 years for him. Right? At first, I had a problem with the rapport. I had to decide if I was going to be professional. I did. Turned out now we're actually, you know, pretty friendly. And he was a lot nicer than what I expected. But I mean, I could have walked away and called him a, you know, whatever, because I didn't like him. Right? Sometimes we don't know why we don't like somebody. I just misjudged them. That was my fault. All right. Maybe you won't ever have that happen, and I hope that you never do. Right? But it's realistic. There's going to be somebody you don't like. Make sense? So I want to hear from each one of you. What are you guys bringing to bring value? Give me just one thing per person. What are you bringing to value for your clients? Edward, we'll start with you since you're at the top of my screen.
Being ethical.
Ethical? Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty big. Guy, what about you?
To me, is really not being, because when you put the customer first, let's say if you need my help, the thing is, I don't see me as a salesperson just sell you a house, make a commission, and go my way. I'm helping you because it's not a walk in the park. Just get a property you have to get. There's a lot to it. You got to get a loan. You got to get the approval. You got to make sure that you get the property right and everything is in.
Guy, not to cut you off, but I want you in a very short 1 or 2 words. How do you provide value? If you were trying to tell a client right now, what are you going to do to provide value? Because honestly, if you would have come at me as a buyer and start explaining all that, and all I asked, all I was looking for something short, you're going to lose me. So real quick, like 1 or 2 words, just tell me something that you're going to use to bring value to your client.
Be honest at the very beginning.
Okay. Honesty.
Yes.
I mean, 100%. Being honest with somebody is going to make a world of difference, especially when they realize that you're honest. You can't tell them you're honest, right? But being honest is going to be huge.
Yeah.
All right. Monica, what about you?
For me, it's customer service. I'm available to you. My job is to make this as stressless as possible.
Removing stress from somebody's life. Does anybody like somebody that adds stress to their life? No, absolutely. Ellie, what about you?
Well, adding to the ethical part, honesty and customer service, because I don't have a lot of knowledge at the moment, but I think I will go with resourcefulness. I could be resourceful. I know my way around things. Even if I don't know the answer, I can get back to you within so and so days or so. So I'll add that.
Yeah, and folks, if you don't have a lot of experience in the business, that is not always a bad thing, right? Mm-hmm. Because I just got a text message from actually a lender, so I'm not as concerned. But he just told me that, or texted me. I didn't ask him to. He says, I'm going to stop by and say hello tomorrow and introduce myself. 1, I don't know you, right? And 2, right, that gives me stress because my calendar, I have a total of like 45 minutes to myself tomorrow, right? An hour. I have an hour to myself tomorrow. I'm wrong, right? It falls between 12 and 1 o'clock. My schedule is packed for tomorrow. So now I'm thinking I got some strange person coming to my office that thinks he's going to have a conversation with me when I have a super busy day, right? So my point behind this is, you can be more flexible with somebody, right? That first time home buyer that's going to have a lot of questions, that's going to need some hand holding. So don't sell yourself short on that. Being resourceful is huge, and having a little bit of time to devote is going to be huge as well. When I sit with my clients, I let them know, hey, this is what we're going to accomplish. I'm going to follow up with you on Friday morning. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm very systematic. Not everybody is going to respond to that. So I'm not trying to give you tools on how to beat me in a listing appointment. I'm just letting you know some of the things that you might want to bring up to your buyers and sellers. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Daniel, what about you?
Yeah, I was about to say that at time. You got me 100%. So time for me is value. So I'm gonna be available, for you, and like Monica said, same thing. So take you out the stress. So
Okay. Jennifer?
Sparkle.
Sparkle. Can you explain that for everybody?
So I bring light to my customers. I make things simple for them, positive for them. When they're stressed, removing stress, making the process fun.
Okay.
And they might get some sparkle syrup at the end.
Does that sound important to anybody? Guys, that bringing this is stressful. We know that. If you can make a stressful situation fun, right, all of a sudden it's going to increase, the longevity of the relationship. And you're not going to get frantic phone calls. That's definitely building rapport. I like it. Elisa, what about you?
And I will keep them informed so they will not need to guess about anything that's going on with buying and selling their house.
Awesome. I like it. Information is king, right? The more information, the sparkle, the giving the time, the ethics, all of those things that you guys are talking about. I want you guys to embrace this stuff when you're out there dealing with your clients, right? When we do our classes here, right, I could sit here and we can go through page by page and page of, PowerPoints, contracts, and all that stuff. And from time to time, it's necessary. All right. But I'm trying to get you guys to engage with this because I need you to understand that this is bigger than a PowerPoint presentation. All right. You have to feel this career because you are working with the largest asset of most people's lives. Okay. If you talk to somebody that has lost their home, right, it's not ever an easy thing. And it has long lasting effects. Monica, you were about to say something?
No, Chris, I don't have anything to say. I just hit it by
Okay. Oh, no worries. But this is, I keep saying it, this is absolutely huge in so many ways. You can affect somebody's financial future, their generational wealth. And there's so many things that we affect here. The woman that I spoke to that I had to turn her away from selling her house, I guess it was last week. She's 80 something years old. She lives in a house. She still gardens her garden. And when I was talking 80 something years old, she just dug two large shrubs out of her front yard. I dug shrubs out of my front yard. They are not easy. And you got a woman in her 80s. All right. This is somebody that takes great pride. She was thinking that it would be better for her to sell the house and move into an apartment because people told her she's old. Right. And she needs something less invasive. Right. I mean, I told her, I was like, I'll do it for you, but I don't think this is the right idea. You love that house. This is your life and you like gardening. You like doing this. You like doing that. Is the house a burden? No. Do you have kids you're trying to liquidate and give them money? No. Right. why would I move somebody that has that pride of ownership and gardens, and that's what they do every day, into an apartment where they're going to be stuck behind four walls and they have nothing else going on, right? I could hear it in her voice. It was not going to be a good thing. So I advised her, I said, look, I don't think you're ready to sell this house, right? I'll sell it if you want me to, but I don't think you're ready to. She says, okay, can we revisit it, sometime in the future? Absolutely. I'll be here. Okay. Sometimes we just have to do the right thing. And even if she doesn't send me a referral, I know at the end of the day, I did the right thing, because I truly don't believe that she will be happy. And I think if she goes into a place like that, she would go downhill very fast. So take a look at this document and see what you guys think. Make it your own, add stuff to it, format it, put it into your buyer's presentation, however you want to use it. This is for you guys. Sound good? Anybody have any thoughts? We've got 5 minutes left. Anybody have anything? Questions, thoughts, ahas?
I got one question. Starting on the beginning, let's say, for example, we were talking about the commissions and things like that. I know it's a lot of people that now, a lot of sellers, they put an incentive of, points by points and things like that. How does the commission works on that, on that case scenario? So, for example, the seller is giving incentive $10,000, $15,000. Does this coming out of the commission of the listing agent, or?
Well, okay, so we're talking about two separate things.
Mhm.
All right. The commission is whatever the commission is. Now, there's some speculation on how that'll be worded here in the future, but supply and demand, we know that the commission will be offered. And any good agent is going to recommend to their client that they pay a buyer's agent, right? Because that's going to attract the agents that know that, that have buyers, right? So we got that. If they're putting in the listing that they will pay $10,000 to buy a point down on the interest rate, or whatever it is, that is a concession in addition to. All right. So commissions on this side, that concession's over there. Two completely separate things. Now, one thing I will tell you is be careful of what loan product we're using, right? Because if we have, depending on the sale price of the house, if we're using a conventional product, how much seller concession can we accept? Anyone? Monica, I know you know this.
I was trying to guess, and I think I don't remember. I want to say no more than 3%, but I don't know if
100%. 3%, folks.
yeah.
All right. So I use that because that's a low one. FHA is 6%, right? But 3%, all right? So 3% seller concession on a conventional loan. So let's just say that we're dealing with a $300,000 house. Okay.
Mhm.
And the seller concession is, let's just say, $10,000. What is 3% of $300,000?
9,000.
9,000. So depending on how it's worded, if it's worded where that can only be used towards concessions, you're leaving $1,000 on the table, because that means that money can't be used, because that concession was only to go towards towards the or that credit was only towards concessions.
No,
So
you should be able to use the 9.
yes, you use 9, but you'll leave that extra $1,000 on the table.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Have they figured out? I stopped following because there's so much information. Have they figured out how to do the veterans who are supposed to, be eligible to not pay fees?
So yeah, so there's two things, and I know we're at the top of the hour, but I know this is weighing on everybody's mind, so if you want to stick around, by all means. So there's a couple things that are coming out. Like I said, the smoke has not cleared yet, dust is not settled, and it is still ongoing. However, some big things that have come out. Fannie and Freddie have said that paying a buyer agent commission will not count towards those commission caps. So the 3% for the conventional, 6% towards FHA will not affect that. The VA has tentatively removed the verbiage stating that a veteran cannot pay those fees. So now they're saying a veteran could pay those fees in essence. So, and keep in mind with most VA buyers, unless we're credit challenged, can finance up to 104% of the contract price. So ultimately that would be where you could put that, whatever that commission is, they can finance it into the loan. So that is possible. I have not seen it, but I suspect that it will come out that the seller can also pay the veterans buyer agent as well.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I would love to give you more of a definitive answer on that, but unfortunately, that's what we have that I know so far. The rest of it's just a lot of conjecture. You got something else, Monica?
No, that was it. I just was curious about that one.
Okay, yeah, your hand went up, so I thought you might have something.
Oh, again? No.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. So anyway, so guys, I know yesterday they rolled out more documents, at least here in Florida, by Florida Association of Realtors. I suspect even those of you that are in other states, you'll be seeing them as soon as well. I will be reviewing these documents. I have not had a chance to, but the great thing is, even whatever they are, they don't go into effect till August anyway. So I figure I got a couple of days. So I will review that stuff by next week. I'll have more answers on what those documents are and what they're proposing. But the one thing I know is everybody that's read them that I've talked to, they're like, it doesn't make sense. So we'll dive into this. I suspect there'll be more changes, but you know what? Next year there's going to be more changes after that, and the year after that there'll be more changes after that. So learn the contract, what you have, and then this way, when they make changes, they're only small adjustments to get us back on target. Sound good?
Okay. Yep.
And folks, if you have a specific question, reach out to me, right? We have, myself, we have Ken in the office, we have Sherry for doing the contracts. We have everybody out there. So you are not out there alone. Sound good?
Yep. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, I will see you guys soon. Once again, welcome, Edward. Glad to have you on the team. And everybody else, we will see you guys here real soon. And just let me know if you need anything.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everybody.